Okay, everybody, hello, welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Crystal Norcross, and I am a Ward 6 resident. And I just want to thank the candidates for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. I guess this is our official candidate forum. And, I'm going to give everybody here 2 minutes to do an introduction and talk about what you're about. I kind of wanted to start this in right away. I have a lot of pressing issues and questions that we'd like to discuss. So, remember everybody 2 minutes, and if I cut you off, I really don't mean to. And I'll ask the question, and I'll let you guys know how much time you guys have between each question. And please hold all questions till the end. There will be a time for questions, so thank you. And we have 2 microphones. Okay, who would like to start first?
I can go first. Hi, thank you all of you guys attend tonight. I am Tony Herbs. I live in the East Side for over 20 years, and I worked for St. Paul Public School for over 25 years. I used to be a park ranger, and I live on the East Side because I love the East Side Ward 6, and I raised my family here for over 20 years, like I say. And volunteer. I used to work volunteer for Transparent District Council 5 for 3 years, and also right now I'm still a school board for one of the charter schools they call Community School of Excellence. And I love East Side, like I'm saying. My platform for the East Side is community engagement, racial equity, and plus public safety, and crime decreasing. And I know that I live in the East Side and our property tax is too high. So if I ever be your council, I'm gonna fight for you. I'm gonna decrease the property tax too. So I will be your go-to person. And if it's small issue, big issue, you can call me in daytime. I will talk to you. In nighttime, I will talk to you. And I'm a fighter. I'm a problem solver. I will fight for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How are you all? My name is Alexander Bourne. I am running for St. Paul City Council, Ward 6, which covers much of East St. Paul. Why I'm running is pretty simple. It's to uplift the voices of the residents of Ward 6. After knocking nearly 250 doors, we ultimately created a platform, and the #1 issue that we heard was people felt like they were not being heard. They were not being included, right? And so we just took the initiative to create those spaces for people to come and share their vision for the city of St. Paul, as well as myself. I've been living on the East Side dating back to 95. Went away for undergrad, and now I'm back home to provide these resources that the city so desperately needs. I've lived in these conditions that the city of St. Paul has dedicated itself to changing. Issues-wise, it's a wide array of issues. Many of the issues we can't tackle directly on the city council, but we can advocate for. And if elected, I will be doing so. Those issues consist of public safety and accountability, renters' equity and reform, transit, education advocacy, environmental advocacy work. I'm really big into land use. We really got to make sure that we're creating the space and mustering the resources so that we can stimulate a thriving business ecosystem so that all businesses can thrive, right? And we just really have to make sure that the East Side begins to get its fair share. It's a lot going on the East Side, and I just want you all to know that I possess that bold mindset that it's going to be needed to tackle these challenges head on. And I just ask for your support on March 10th for caucuses. All of you all have received one of my flyers. I've already taken the initiative to educate the public on the political process. I've never seen it done. Everyone that I've spoken with have never seen it done. But that is what's necessary. If we're going to sit here and say that we are advocating for equity and inclusion, then our entire campaigns need to make sure that it's reflective of just that. Thank you.
Thank you.
有種種對咗單頭嘅人嚟自佢哋呢就係啦。Hello everyone, my name is Nelsie Yang and I'm your candidate for St. Paul City Council here in Ward 6. I am a proud East Sider, proud Hmong American daughter of refugees and renter here in the East Side of St. Paul. I am a union steward and organizer at Take Action Minnesota, where I work every single day to restore voting rights to formerly incarcerated people and work to dismantle the racism, classism, and sexism in our communities every single day. Today I'm joined by my awesome campaign, one of my campaign leaders, Hugh, and so excited that also my father is able to join us, so he's in the very back. He's one of my biggest heroes and one of the reasons why I'm able to be your proud Hmong American neighbor here today. And so I wanted to share that some of the biggest reasons that motivated me to run for city council, they are all the reasons why I ever got involved in the community in the first place and started working to dismantle the deepest oppressions in our community. Just like all of you, I love the East Side so much. So much, and I know that for us to be able to go toward the direction of living in a very bold, progressive community, it means that we need a fighter as the city at the city hall to represent us, because we are sick and tired of being last on the bucket. And just like all of you, I know how neglected and left behind our community is, and we're ready for something different. And so I want to share that when I think of the East Side, a place where I envision myself retiring in the future, I want it to be a place of abundance for every single person. And whether you've lived here for one day, 10 years, 20 years, that you see yourself living here long term, and that means that everywhere we go, we need to have quality, affordable housing for families who need it. We need safe parks, safe community spaces for our children and for families to be able to go to. And we also need for every single family to be able to thrive economically, and if they have a dream to pursue it, to open a business, to be an entrepreneur, that their dreams are actually supported by the city council. And so these are all the things that I dream of, and if you also care deeply about this type of East Side too, I want to partner with you to make it happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nelsie.
Hi everybody, my name is Terri Thao, and I'm here running for the seat because I want to talk about how we can create a better East Side together. So I've lived in St. Paul most of my life, and my husband and I bought our house over here to be close to his family about 12 years ago. So I'm a mom, so we raise our 2 kids here who attend St. Paul Public Schools. And a little bit about me. So I've been doing work in this community for the past 15 years, spent most of my career doing it in the field of community economic development. So whether it was programs that was helping people open businesses, whether it was programs that were helping figure out affordable housing, unfortunately during the recession here, working on issues of foreclosure in the neighborhood that impacted so many people, working on issues of financial inclusion, and over at the East Side Financial Center that was in the old Swedish Bank building, helping support the renovation of that building. Those were projects that I've been doing, working on in the neighborhood. Even the Failing Corridor Initiative, I remember when they were developing the street here that connects us to so many different parts of the city. So I also have done a lot of community work, so I just stepped off the board of the East Side Neighborhood Development Company and a couple of other nonprofits on my run here for City Council. I'm running because I care about my 3 issues I'm really concerned about are about economic inclusion. How do we think about local jobs and local businesses and continue to support commercial corridors here and make sure that we have the services for the residents that live here. I care a lot about maintaining and preserving housing affordability, not just new units, but also, St. Paul's got old housing stock, right? How do we keep up with our homes and the energy efficiency in them? And then last but not least, I'm all about creating great, safe neighborhoods. It shouldn't matter where our backgrounds or where we come from. And the neighborhood I grew up in was pretty poor and was pretty scary at times, but we couldn't leave. And so we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We're the ones that are going to be providing the answers. And I'm really looking forward to doing this in partnership with you all.
Thank you.
Hey everybody. What's up, everybody? That's usually how I start things, and I'm trying to hold on to myself through this. So what's up, everybody? How y'all doing? I'm running for city council because I love community, and I do community work as a living. I'm a community organizer, and I got started in organizing at the Eastside Neighborhood Development Company that Terri was on the board at. And I'm still doing community organizing at the Frogtown Neighborhood Association. But I've also spread out and started doing some work around policy with MICA, which is a local organization. They work on affordable housing. So I'm getting some perspective on the ground level where I'm knocking on doors, at a city level where we're creating policy, and then also at a state level where we're creating policy. And I'm really seeing the importance of who's sitting in the seats. There's a lot of fighting that's happening on the ground where people are trying to get communities activated, in touch with the power that's at the city, and get some of that power down to the community. And with all the fighting that's going on, when we get to the door, it'd be nice to have someone there to open it up rather than have to tear down the door as well. So that's why I'm running, open up the doors for the community, and also activate the community. So there are a couple different things that I've thought about. And I think that we're all talking about some of the similar things, affordable housing and such like that. So the advancement of our youth is the number one thing that I'm hearing. Our young people, before we know it, 5 years will go by and our 15-year-olds will be 20, and they're gonna be looking for housing, and those issues will be different for them. 5 years goes by very quickly. So I think focusing on our youth at the center of everything is a great way to go, because they really are the future of this community. Economic development, and there's a lot that falls into that with housing, small business development, employment, and access to education. Sweeter streets, which I like that, because you heard of sweet streets, or sweet street. I think we need sweeter streets, and so like infrastructure, can we get some potholes filled? Can we get lighting on our streets? And can we get some snow removal? Because those things are dangerous. It's dangerous, and it's costly with our vehicles and such like that. So, environmental wellness. So our environment all around us should be healthy. I think that our environment reflects the people, and if our environment is not healthy, then how can the community be healthy within it? So those are things I'm focusing on, and I'd love to develop that more as we talk with community and things like that, but I'm very excited to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you, candidates. So I do a lot of work with the East Side, and I had East Siders help me draw up these questions, and I figured these are the ones with the bigger issues. A lot of you guys had touched on them. But my first question, so each of you have a couple minutes to answer, and just be mindful of everybody's time. I'm not going to keep telling you to cut you off or anything, but we do have 5 questions we have to get through. So there's a huge affordable housing crisis throughout the metro, but specifically on the East Side. How can you make sure that this issue is addressed, and especially for the elderly and low-income families? I would like any of you to start, whoever wants to go first. Thank you.
So affordable housing is a very broad issue, okay? And one of the things that we are going to do to address affordable housing while on the city council if elected, and that's banning the box on single-family rental home applications. We're not talking about duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, or even apartment buildings. We are simply talking about single-family rental home applications, which a lot of landlords, not all, and actually we have to distinguish the two, because we have landlords and we have slumlords, okay? And the slumlords have very manipulative practices, particularly pertaining to the application process. They take $30 to $75 from individuals that they know that they're not going to rent to, okay? And that's really unfortunate, and it's further perpetuating poverty, right? And at some point we need to understand that. Preservation of our housing stock, certainly we need to do that, right? I actually had one landlord that owns roughly a little over 100 rental properties right here on the East Side. He told me, well, if you move towards rent control or anything like it, then I'll just sell my inventory to people that will live in these homes, right? And now we're talking about the displacement of a very large population, because right here on the east side, we have about 5,600 people renting homes, and that's a problem. As far as seniors, certainly, we need to make sure that we are creating spaces and opportunities that allows them to age in place. There's a lot of people right here on the east side that bought their homes 20, 30, 40 years ago with the understanding that they were going to educate their kids right here in St. Paul Public Schools, just as I was educated in, okay, send them off to college just as I did, return back home, and allow them to age in place. But unfortunately, that vision is diminishing slowly. And we need to make sure that we are implementing policies that allows our seniors to do so. Our youth, they need an environment where they can be stable in right now. Because right now, it all boils down to them, right? Because if these kids are not stable at home, it's going to be reflective in their academics, right? And if it's reflective in their academics, 9 times out of 10, they're going to end up in nearly every juvenile detention center in the state of Minnesota, just as I did, okay? And that's really unfortunate. So for me, it's actually a very personal issue, right? Because we need to figure out, how do we break this cycle? Okay, and I don't have all of the answers, but there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of knowledge right here in this room, and I really want to work together with you all to figure out how we can move towards measurable solutions, right? The city right now has a housing first type model that pretty much says that, you know, let's get these homeless people off of the street, right, and just into a home, right? But that's cool and slightly noble of them, right? But I want to take that a little bit farther and advocate for the wraparound services pertaining to that, okay? Because a lot of these individuals that are out here on our streets, they are homeless and they have additional issues that need to be addressed. One being mental illnesses, just like I have, right? Like I know that I've been formally diagnosed with different forms of mental illnesses and things along those lines. And I know that that may contribute to other people's position as it relates to their housing, right? And so the city needs to understand that. And the more we begin to give people advocating for these wraparound services, whether it be chemical dependency or mental health resources, whatever it may be, something needs to be done, and Housing First is not it. It's just not it. You take these people off the streets and then what? You give them a warm place to do drugs, right? You give them a warm place to continue substance abuse of whatever it may be, right? You don't provide them with the psychological assistance that they really need. And now they're back on the streets, right? On your dime, right? And now you're arguing with your city council members about how your neighborhood isn't safe, right? Because of the lack of economic opportunity that they now have, right? I know you want me to stop because you really want to get to your candidate, but unfortunately your candidate doesn't talk about these things, okay? And they need to be talked about. Ms. Ann?
I'm sorry.
I'd like to hear from somebody else.
Yeah, can we?
I'm sure you would, but these are issues that your candidates are not talking about, and they need to be talked about.
They will be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Terri.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the affordable housing crisis, there's a couple different things we have to look at. We have to look at development, right? We have a lot of empty lots here on the east side, and those are opportunities for development of units that we can leverage, because the biggest power we have at the city council is the ability to control our land and zoning issues. And so the other big piece, and in terms of development, we have to look at models that keep housing in perpetual affordability, such as land trusts or housing cooperatives that are increasingly become models that are used across the Twin Cities here to keep housing affordable. The other piece is about preservation. Earlier I talked about our older housing stock. We have to look at ways in which we can begin to rehab our homes so that they can have multiple purposes, because it's cheaper to rehab than build new. And we have to look at how we leverage city dollars. The city already has a lot of funding for that, and how we get more dollars and let people know about these opportunities. And this is also an opportunity to engage with banks in the private sector, and also an opportunity to leverage local jobs. The other piece is, I think Alexander was talking about income, right? There's the other side of the equation we have to look at too when it comes to the affordable housing crisis. And that even the great $15 an hour that passed still isn't enough to cover rent for many families. So we have to be looking at that side of the equation too, about how we think about what incomes families need to make in order to be a working family to pay their rents. I think the other piece too about, and not only is it about getting folks into housing, but also again, the maintaining them into those housing conditions that'll be critical for us to think about too, so that we're not, you know, getting folks out in the street, so that housing's not precarious. The other piece too, I'm also running because I'm really worried about, the East Side's a great market. You know, the Twin Cities is a really good real estate market now, but what it means for the East Side is investors will come in and try to make a lot of money and displace people, and we absolutely cannot have any more homeless people than we already have. And so I am very concerned about those issues and have been, you know, thinking and working with folks to think about how we do not displace folks from their homes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, affordable house. When I was on the district council 5, we do a lot of give permissions for the company to develop. I mean, more apartments and more houses, and you know, and especially on the Hillcrest area. I mean, we still have a lot of land in there. You know, we can have a apartment in there, we can build a house in there, but we need to talk to those neighbors. And on the east side, I think we still have a lot of space there, and lots of old houses that we need to remodel. And we need to talk to the city, and we need to talk to the county and the state, and they share money to remodel all those homes, so to be better home, to be enough home for people living on the east side. So that's, if I get elected, I will find some money. I will talk to the city and the state and the county. We should have some money to build some more houses. And like I say, should be some affordable house on the east side for people. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle?
Would you mind reading the question again, please?
Yes, ma'am. There's a huge affordable affordable housing crisis throughout the metro, but specifically on the east side. How can you make sure that this issue is addressed? And then specifically for the elderly and low-income families.
Okay. Particularly for elder community, I was just thinking about this today. Knowing that our community is growing, and we're seeing a lot more larger families, and so what's being built are 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, whereas we have people with families, maybe sometimes with 5 or 6 people in them. And a lot of our housing stock right now are filled with baby boomers who bought their house maybe years ago and are still there in their homes. But the reality of it is that it's much less expensive to stay in their homes than it is to move out and be a renter these days, because it's become so expensive. But if we had some sort of like policies in place as far as what is setting the terms of affordability, or how affordability is measured. I know that we use the area median income now, which takes in the income from the 7 county metros to find the median, and we're nowhere near the county area median. We're much less here. So what I've been hearing, what's a better number to look at is if we're living cost burden, which is if you're spending 30% or more on your housing, which is a much more realistic number to look like, because that's different for everybody. So I think just starting how do we deem something affordable, right? How are we calculating affordability, and really fighting and saying this is what we need, you know, and making it so that people can move out. If you know, to be in a house and as you're aging, it's hard to keep up with repairs. It's hard to keep up with the maintenance of a house. And so they become, you know, in disrepair. And then that's what ends up happening to our housing stock. So if we're able to move people out, get new families in, we can restart to revitalize some of those houses and return revitalize our communities. But I think really looking at some policies and how we are calculating affordability.
Okay. Nelsie? Thank you, Danielle.
I just wanted to take a step back a bit and ask all of you to really think about what a home means to you. When you picture your home, what are the feelings that you get from it? Because when I think of the place that I call home, it's a place of happiness, a place where I can go whenever I want to, and I have safety, and I never have to worry about whether about I never have to worry about anyone coming in to do something to damage my home, but it's a place that is mine, my safe space. And when I think about this question, there is so much urgency around it because when people in our community do not have a home, it leads to so many things, so much hurt and pain. And this is actually a topic that has been here at the East Side for a long time now. It's not that all of a sudden this year, this topic just suddenly came up. It's been here, it is systemic. Poverty in our community here in the East Side is so systemic, and what I want to see is I want us to have a leader who is actually prioritizing these very urgent issues that are threatening the lives of the people in our community every single day. So to me, prioritizing housing and making sure that we have quality affordable housing for every single person and any homelessness is a priority of mine. And I'm running for office not to be an expert, not to seek to be an expert, but to be someone to open doorways of having conversation and partnering up with community organizations that are already doing the groundwork to end homelessness in our community. I want to be a partner to you, be a partner to all of the stakeholders in making sure that we have homes for every single person. And so that is my commitment. I also want to make sure that we have a budget that deeply reflects any homelessness in our city as well.
All right, thank you so much. Once again, I'm going to tell each of you guys to please just watch the time. This one question took us about 20 minutes. It should have took 10. I could do the time limit thing, but I like to hear the genuine answers as well. So once again, my second question: property taxes are on the rise. What are your thoughts to keep them at an affordable rate?
I've been thinking about this. Property taxes seem like, when I hear people talk about affordable housing, I think that the natural thought is like, well, we must raise property taxes because the money has to come from somewhere, which seems very counterintuitive to me because we have such a huge rental population here. So if the taxes are going up, rents are going up, and the affordable housing becomes, kind of gone in the wash. There was something that was brought up a lot during the mayoral race, and I haven't heard much about it yet, but it's something that I think that we should continue to talk about, and that's pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes, where you are collecting payment in lieu of taxes for nonprofits like hospitals or Metro State, churches, things like that. That way we're getting some new money coming in without having to penalize the people who are living in the city and penalizing the people who are providing affordable housing. So,
thank you.
I'd like to double down on that one because I think I was the first candidate to begin to talk about pilot programming here in the city council, especially in this race. The fact of the matter is we have way too many nonprofit organizations, schools, hospitals that contribute $0 to our bottom line tax base. And the only people that are forced to flip that tab to keep police officers on our streets, to keep us safe in our firehouses, in our homes, is property owners via property taxes and poor people via the slashing of funding. Okay, and we cannot continue to have rising taxes to help supplement that. We cannot continue to have our city ran on the backs of poor people and homeowners, right? We just can't. And pilot, I am a huge proponent of pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, okay? And it's essentially getting these different nonprofit organizations, hospitals, and universities to just essentially be a good neighbor, give us what you can, contribute what you can, right? Because they utilize our electricity, they call our police department, they call our fire department, if alarm goes off, right? Just be a good neighbor, right? Help take some of that burden off of these families so that they can truly begin to invest in themselves and their families.
Thank you.
Property tax, I know that I complain every year because, each year, I just saw the referendums and then increase tax every year. So if I get elected, I will talk to my state house representative, state house senator. Those they have some money to fund in the school, so they won't do a referendum increase tax for the property tax. So those are the things that I am own a house on the east side, and property tax go up every. So that's my complaint. And like I'm saying, you know, if I get elected, I will talk to my state representative, state senator. They need to find some money to funding the school, so we don't increase tax for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll just really quickly finish one last point though, because the overall issue is the fact of the matter is the city needs additional revenue streams. And I'm really big into land use, preserving our waterways and things along those lines. But more importantly, I think we can begin to, the city already has a large inventory of buildings that they already own. We can turn those into rooftop gardens, okay? And we can leverage things such as hydroponics paired with like aquaponics. I won't go into all of that right now because that'll make me look like a super duper nerd. But this is something that's self-efficient, very minimal overhead, and can begin to provide the basic fruits and produce for neighborhoods that so desperately needs it, whether it be on a pro bono basis, or they can even do it and have it as an additional revenue stream. We have the means to create them with very minimal income. Let's give me overhead.
Thank you. Nelsie?
Well, I first want to start off by saying thank you to all of you because of neighbors like you, we have funding for our public schools, we have funding for the everyday services that we need in our city for everyone to be able to thrive. And I feel like to get to the heart of this question, it's actually not a matter of affordability. It's about having a long-term plan to make sure that working families, small businesses here do not always have to be the backbone to the services that we need every day. Right now, what I'm thinking of is all of the moments that I was out there in the streets with unions, like the St. Paul Federation of Educators, with organizations like Take Action Minnesota, progressive organizations that have pushed many years for our city to follow through with corporate accountability. There are so many corporations right now that are getting tax breaks at the cost of our public schools, at the cost of your family having the type of services you need. And in order for us to be on a path where we actually have a sustainable pathway for families here to thrive, we actually need to go in the direction of corporate accountability, because affordability to you and I, they mean two different things. All of us have a different definition for it. And so when I think about bigger picture and the long-term picture for our city, it's really about making sure that we have a sustainable way to really support our city.
Thank you.
I think property tax, the issue of them is that I actually think we should look at the data, because I don't think for the east side it's gone up as much as for the rest of the city, partially because our values are less than the city. It's also something that the county actually assessed, so the role of the city is, Is this better? Sorry. Thank you. As I said earlier, property taxes are interesting because we every year the costs go up, just minimal costs, inflation, things go up. So we have to figure out how we're going to be funding that from somewhere. And actually, I would ask us to look at the data. I think on the east side, it actually didn't go up as much, but we know it matters when property taxes get passed along to owners and particularly to renters too. So it has an impact. I think we have to think about what we're asking for. That's in our property taxes. When we look at our tax bill, what's going for the different things, for the schools, for the regional rail service, right? And so I don't know if you've noticed that on your tax statement, but there's a couple different pieces involved in there too. I think the property taxes are part of the equation to fund city services. That's the bigger question, right? And we need to look at things like how do we increase local government aid at the state level, because we pay more statewide into the system, and we need to make sure some of that money comes back to us here too. And so it's a complex issue, but again, the county is the one that assesses it. What we can do at the city is collectively, how do we increase things like development so that we're not trying to compare churches and schools in our communities, right? We can have all these things.
Thank you so much. My third question is about small businesses. Small businesses are what make the East Side unique. What can you do to keep these small businesses thriving? It's really generalized, but I really hope you guys have some creative answers.
I want to take the lead on this one. I'll wait.
Well, with small businesses, I think that we need some flexibility in what businesses need. So it's really hard to give support with like a one-stroke brush, depending upon who you are, what type of business you have, where you are, and those sorts of things. I think it'd be really interesting to have something a little bit more general. I think particularly about Payne Avenue, which has a lot of really thriving young businesses that are doing very well. And nearby, there was a small business, Judy's Kitchen, that was closed very soon after opening. And so I wonder why some businesses thrive and some businesses do not. And I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Judy's Kitchen, or Charles Dexter was the owner. But you know, they're no longer there, and Charles was a black man. You know, I'm just gonna put it out there. So I wonder, why are some businesses doing okay, but why are like smaller black businesses not thriving as much? From what I hear from him, it's just working capital. You know what I mean? Like, I need money to be able to do things. And I know that we have some programming where we can fund small businesses, but those are dollar for dollar match. So you only can get what you put in, which is difficult if you don't have anything to begin with. But if we had something like, okay, how about this? If we had something where we had a city staffer who worked in accounting or who had a background in business, and they went along with the dollars, right? So maybe there's not a dollar for dollar match, but they have like a staffer to help them with their monthly books, to help them with the regular of everyday business, just to kind of reassure the city that their money isn't just going to be thrown, you know, because I can understand with lending that there has to be some type of collateral. So really just trying to get creative on how we can show support in dollars for businesses that look different. I talked to another small business that said, you know, it would be really helpful to just have another employee, but I can't afford to hire someone. So maybe it's about using some of our youth, some of the youth that we know are looking for jobs. They say one of the best deterrents for like gang violence and violence in general is that get youth into jobs. Perhaps we can be supporting businesses to staff some of our young adults that are in the area. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone, providing an opportunity for some of our youth and providing an opportunity for some of our small businesses. So those are a couple ideas that I've thought about.
Thank you. We have podium here.
Small business. When I was on the District Council 5, a lot people on the east side was thinking they're coming to get permits to do a business, and we do a testify like who going to be open the small business. They come and testify with us, and after that, and we wrote down letters to the city, then assist the city council so they have permission to open the business. And I think at East Side, I was talking to a lot of small business. The thing that they are not survive because, you know, sometimes the city is kind of a little strict on the business, you know. So I think that we need the city to do a little soft on the inspection stuff, and plus the city should have some money to loan for somebody that want to start a small business, you know. So those, if I get elected, I will check it out with the city, negotiate with that, find some money, so do a low interest loan for whoever want to start a small business on the East Coast. Thank you.
Terry?
I think, first, let's patronize them. Raise your hand if you've been at an East Side business in the past week. Thank you, right? I know, that first we need to patronize them, right? And then we need to tell our friends, because I think marketing and word of mouth will get us way more than other kinds of fancier marketing initiatives, because those businesses are there, some people come to them as destinations, but they're really here for us local residents to go to and patronize. So in terms of helping support small businesses, I think we need to think about creating incubator space so people who have new emerging ideas can come and share what they want to do. You know, when we have closed businesses, when Governor's closed, Far East opened up, right? So there are people who see opportunity here on the East Side. So let's not stop that. Let's encourage as much of that as possible. We talked about capacity building, right? Getting the technical assistance so businesses can thrive, getting them funding. I was on a board of an organization. We did $10,000 loans. Our loan pool is gone, right? Because people needed that money right away. People don't need $150,000 as much small business SBA loans because you need to have a certain type of business to get to that level. But folks just need that working capital piece. And I think we, so there's loan funds that are out there that we need to be helping folks support along the way too. And as well as looking at another thing what cities can do is continue to do our work improving storefronts and leveraging money for signage, as well as looking at actual building spaces, right? Where are empty lots or where are buildings that we can repurpose, again, cheaper than building new, for small businesses to thrive. And so those are just some things that in my experience I've come across.
Well, when I think about this, I think about the stake that's I myself have as someone who aspires being an entrepreneur here at the East Side. I think about how hard the experience must be, especially knowing that the economic system that we live in right now, right, a system that was actually not built to support Black, Brown, Indigenous people, LGBTQ people who wanted to run businesses. How much of a struggle that must have been, and in the conversations that I've been having, it is I often think about the opportunities that people I meet along the way need, which is they need support when they have a dream of opening up a business. They need a small package, or they need a small grant for them to be able to open up their business. They want to go to a bank that has equitable practices and won't discriminate them just because of their skin color, their gender, or anything. And so these are the priorities that I feel our city council really needs to advocate for, making sure that there is equity all across for every single person. And to me, it is astounding that one of the biggest obstacles that business owners right now are facing is they say to me, Nelsie, whenever an inspector from the city comes to look at my shop, I feel like I'm actually getting bullied. So to me, it really shows me that there's so much that we need to do to actually make sure that the departments within our city are being kind and are treating business owners equitably. And so these are the things that are really important to me. Thank you.
Good. I'm going to reverse the roles. How many people on this stage right now has ever owned a business? Cool. Me too. And out there, any of y'all entrepreneurs? I see one in the back. You? Perfect. Okay. The fact of the matter is, right here in the city of St. Paul, it's too hard to do business. Okay. One business that comes to mind is Karibu, who I've met quite a few of you all at for meetings. This is a business owned by an immigrant family, grew up right here on the east side, actually on the same block as I did, on the corner of Minnehaha and Edgerton. Took them 4 years to get their business off the ground. Not because they didn't have the money, not because they didn't have the resources, but simply because it's just too hard to do business in the city of St. Paul. So one thing that we worked really hard on in the city of New Orleans, which is where I went to undergrad at, was creating a one-stop shop, okay? And you've heard from the other candidates talk about essentially the burden of the permits department, right? The inspections department, right? There's the bureaucracies here in the city of St. Paul, it's just too many hands in the pot, too many minds, right? We need to streamline that process, okay? We need to create a one-stop shop to where individuals can, if you're an entrepreneur like Marcia in the back, a woman-owned business owner, or an aspiring entrepreneur like Nelsie here, if you have never owned a business here in the city of St. Paul, you should be able to go to one spot, okay, and the person that greets you at that door should be able to walk you through the process pertaining to your business, okay? Not give you a checklist and send you to 3, 5, 9 different departments, okay? Because now we're talking about a breakdown in communication, right? That's likely to take place, okay? As far as fostering and mustering the resources for entrepreneurs that already exist, certainly. We need to make sure that we are doing everything in our will to protect the businesses that are currently here. The East Side thrives off of small businesses, and they need to be rewarded, simply, okay? Like, I don't think that it's Cadence Coffee where I host coffee every Monday morning at, I don't think it's their responsibility to have to necessarily invest in a sign that beautifies their block, right? I think the city should bear a slight responsibility in aiding those individuals to be able to beautify their neighborhoods, because when Cadence does better, that whole block does better, okay? And quite frankly, Cadence is 3 business owners, okay? These are individuals that wake up and go to work right downstairs from where they live, okay? These individuals don't have the resources that's necessary to be able to invest thousands and thousands into their business to make their business look appealable to the community, okay? That burden has to be shifted to the city, because the city plays a role in how these businesses do, and the city needs to understand that, okay? They really do. And you need someone that's going to go down to City Hall and really advocate for those resources, right? One of my biggest strengths is strategic partnerships, mustering the resources that's necessary for individuals to thrive. Okay, I started my first business with just $156, not because that's all it took, but simply because that's all I had. I didn't have any social resources to leverage. I didn't have any financial resources to leverage. I just had the will and the determination, like many of you all, okay? That business went on to do really well, really quickly, but guess what? It failed. You know why? Not because of poor business practices, because of public corruption, okay? The district attorney, because I know some of you all have pointed out that, you know, for those that don't know, we'll just talk about for those that don't know. I started a corporate-based shoe repair service in the city of New Orleans, where we provided shoe repair services to large and small offices and corporations, primarily across the Gulf Coast region, but we had clients all over the country. Okay, and that business, like I said, did really well, really quickly. But on a local level, we provided a pickup and delivery service for really wealthy people that could afford this this luxurious service, right? I had a wealthy white woman who did not get her shoes back on time. Her husband, who was a prominent attorney in the city of New Orleans, what we now know is that he paid the district attorney $5,000 to have me prosecuted, and he paid a judge $1,000 to have me held incarcerated for 9 months without bond, okay? That is what happened, okay? And it's really unfortunate, but it's the harsh reality, okay? These things really happen.
Excuse me, Ms. Alexander, I am
Well,
so
I
sorry.
wanted, because one of the candidates.
Well, due to time constraints, I'd like to I have to actually get to my 5th question, so I'm sorry that I had to skip a question.
Well, I just wanted to clear the air because
No,
I hear
I
these
understand.
candidates chirping on the slick, so I wanted to make sure we just cleared the air, because this was nothing less than political corruption. You know, and I'm fortunate enough that I had the resources necessary to come out of that.
I appreciate that. We can
Right,
talk
and
more
I
on
think the
this
public
after.
deserves to know that.
Right, we can talk
Thank
more
you.
on this after. So we all know the infamous trash deal. How do you plan on rectifying the issue, you know, at hand, you know, if you do get on city council? This is the question I saved for last because I know that this is a huge issue that everybody in the city, but you know, if you go on the East Side pages, you would all see. So anybody, Terri would like to go first. Thank you.
When I talk with residents about the trash situation, what a lot of East Siders say is that they, particularly those on fixed incomes, talk about how trash was one way they were able to save on household income, right? And so I think, you know, we should definitely look at working on the price issues. And so, but I think we have to kind of think about like what, you know, and certainly the way they deliver their services has not been up to a level. And I appreciate now that the interim council member is talking to the haulers to ask to see what type of service that needs to change, especially in light of the weather. But I think we need to. But then I've heard a lot of, you know, different things. People who really, the biggest reason is because of income, but that people appreciate though having the service, because it means every house gets covered. And so one of the reasons I also heard why we wouldn't do it was because it would mean less trucks in our street. So we'll see come spring how big the potholes are in the streets. And I think we have to give it a little bit of time, folks. I know it's really frustrating right now, But I think the more we continue to touch base, the more we engage with folks around the issue, the more we can do that best learning. I know that the citywide trash hauling system is one of the first ways we're starting to do the work. I know a lot of people would talk about snow plowing, and alleyway snow plowing is possibly the next, possible citywide organized activity, and I hear a lot more support for that. And so I definitely, if elected as council, continue to do the engagement, continue to think about the price, because we know where folks are in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. From my experience, having knocked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doors right here on the east side, the number one issue pertaining to trash isn't the fact that their bill went up $20 or $30, okay? The number one issue that I've been hearing is simply the lack of transparency, the lack of inclusion. It was just another example of government coming into the neighborhood and shoving a process down their throat. That is the problem, okay? And if I'm elected to the city council, we're gonna make sure that the city council begins to have a little bit more moral character, be a little bit more transparent, okay? Be really inclusive, okay? Truly inclusive. That is what is necessary. I don't think people have a problem with organized trash. I really don't. It's just another example of government coming in and saying, hey, it's only gonna increase $20 or $30. You shouldn't have a problem with that, right? Because these are the pros, and never mind what those cons are that you may think about, okay? That is what needs to take place if I'm elected to the city council, in my personal opinion.
Thank you. Danielle?
I think that one thing that we can do is really look into like a zero waste plan, and I know that there is one that is kind of circulating in our city. And Crystal, you actually talked about one out of Seattle. So I think that just really looking elsewhere and see what's working in other places to reduce the amount of trash altogether, that might help with overflow and that kind of thing, and maybe it won't be, you won't have bags hanging around if you have less trash if something happens with like snowstorms, which, I think it's bound to happen, especially where we live every year. You never know what the weather is going to bring. So really looking into some efforts to reduce trash altogether, I think would be a good place to start.
Thank you. Nelsie?
Well, as a community organizer, one of the most important things to me is always making sure that I engage the voices of people who live in the community, because they are the ones who are going to be impacted by all the decision making in the city. And knowing that the East Side is a ward in St. Paul here that has experienced the highest voter suppression, when the organized trash system came, many families felt, well, where did I actually get to give input? And they often, for families who live in poverty, I speak, from personal experience that when you don't actually have a chance to have a say in politics, sometimes you internalize the issue yourself and say, well, it's my fault that I'm not hardworking enough that I can't afford to pay my own trash bill, or I can't afford to keep up with paying bills in my house. And so I feel like knowing where our community is so important for us to have a council member who is deeply engaging in people and making sure that we're bringing them along in the process. When I have talked to residents about the organized trash collection, one of the stories that I'm thinking of most right now is talking to a resident who, in their household, they have always practiced zero waste. They have always been a zero waste family, and so for them, they never needed a trash bin. They never needed it because they always did compost. They always found other ways to get rid of their trash. And then all of a sudden, bam, here comes a bill, something that they've never needed for years. And so we have families who are already practicing, who are already really progressive in the community here, and they are actually modeling for us where we want to bring our community to. So I feel like there's so much for us to learn from them and make sure that the systems that we live in moving forward, that they actually work for the families. I think that there is so much that our city can do to really tweak language in a contract and make sure that it really meets our communities where they are at. So that is what I am deeply committed to doing, and I know it's something that I can't do alone. I want to be able to work with all of you to make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd.
Yes. When the city changed the company to Advanced company that took the price is jacked up. And I was the one that complained, that called the city that, you know what, my my trash company in the past, the Republic, is cheaper. And I was talking to a whole bunch of people on the east side. They said, well, Ward 6, they said, well, the price is too high. And I think that if I elect to be your new council, I like the idea that go back to individual choose their own trash can. So that is the thing that I think I would do it. So I think the price too high for the new company. So this is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I want to get into the question portion tonight, and we only have enough for a couple. So, all right, can you come up this side a little bit, please?
Question. I've heard a lot about financing tools, strategies, all kinds of policy things. But looking at housing, when you really get down to it, I have so many of my neighbors who've crashed and burned over home ownership because they were not educated about what it means to get a loan from a bank and how do you evaluate a house so you're not walking into a black hole. And 3 of my neighbors have since left and their credit is trashed for the rest of their life. And I know the city itself doesn't have much to do with predatory lending, but I sure wish we had some kind of community education over how to be a homeowner.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. You know, that was the situation for me. When I bought my first house when I was 22 years old, I had a decent enough credit score. I worked full time. I made an okay amount of money. And I could do it, yeah, you can go ahead and do it. So I did it, and I lost my house in foreclosure very soon after when I got a divorce. And it wasn't until I started working in mortgage and real estate that I actually was able to comprehend what I had gotten myself into. It was like a light bulb. And I was floored thinking about all of the people who may have gone through a similar situation as I have. And I think that partnership is really important. Knowing the right people in the community who is doing work and who's doing good work with people, whose intention is not just to make money, but to really educate people through the process. We have one of those people here for sure, small business owners. So I think that relationships matter, and knowing who's in your community to do work. Because when you're a leader, people are going to come to you with questions. Hey, I got somebody in the community who's looking to buy a home. Do you know somebody who's good, right? And you have to be that person to say, yeah, I know somebody who's good, who you can trust. So I think building relationships is really important, and then just creating spaces for things like that to happen.
Thank you.
Actually, and just real quick, right on Payne Avenue above US Bank is the Minnesota Home Ownership Center. And they have a program that is called Home Stretch that's funded through state money as well as philanthropic dollars that teaches people about this. And most of the people that go through that Home Stretch training, and you can do that entirely online right now, you get a certificate for it. When you bring it to a Home Stretch approved bank, you get a mortgage product that it will meet you at a good, that says, I took the class and certification. Now, I know what's hard is because sometimes people buy because they're, in a hurry, they're buying because they're trying to stabilize their families, or they're buying because they're moving from one area to another really quick too, so they don't always have the time to get the education. And so then it's incumbent upon us to be good neighbors, to Danielle's point, to provide good resources to each other. But the fact that the Home Ownership Center is right here in our backyard is an opportunity we should not pass up.
Thank you.
How many people know about that in this room? 2, 3.
No more than
4, 5.
Less than 10.
Pat, I want to say thank you for sharing your story, and also thank you for fighting for your neighbors as well. This is a topic that's really close to home for me because about 6 years ago, my family's home, it was foreclosed. And I still remember that being one of the darkest moments in my life because I thought to myself, well, where am I going to sleep tonight? And what does the future actually look like for my family and I to be able to get back up on our feet after having bad credit, having unstable housing, and just being able to feel like that there was hope there was very little of that in that moment. And so there are so many families right now who are living through what you're talking about right now, and it is urgent. It is something that needs to be addressed right away. And I want to share that earlier you talked about predatory loaning, and what that really brings and what that really makes me think about, right, is how our city actually needs to be partnering up with institutions that are here and are invested in the people who live here, rather than taking advantage of them and gentrifying our communities. And so that deep commitment and that mission that our city has, right, we need to actually follow through with it. And we need to make sure that we are accountable to all the people who live here in our city. And so that is a deep commitment that I have. And I want to share that in our communities, we can try to fund 100 programs to teach people about homeownership. But at the end of the day, right, that will never actually cover enough people. And so part of that is about us having leaders in our community, supporting community organizations that will do the grassroots work to protect and fight for families here every single day. And that is what I am deeply committed to.
Anyone that has ever had the opportunity to have a sit down with me, I always tell them in the first few sentences that the top priority of mine is to make sure that individuals here in the city of St. Paul, which includes you all here on the east side, begin to have equitable access to home ownership opportunities and resources. And what that really means is, just because these programs are out here that we all seem to know about, right? Ignorance really is bliss, okay? If we don't know what we don't know, okay? And what I have already began to do is work with the library system to implement programming pertaining to home ownership opportunities, pertaining to entrepreneurial related resources, right? Because we need to educate people like Maya, like Jerome, like Danielle's kids over there, on not only financial literacy, but also what it means to, what is checks, what is balances, what is debit, what is credit, what is home ownership, what is all in, what are those intricate details pertaining to all of these different things? Because without that knowledge, they will not thrive, and we will continue to have these conversations decades and decades down the line. These resources are here, right? But guess what? Many individuals, like those that did not raise their hand, including myself, do not know about those resources. And it's not that we're not actively looking for them, right? It's the fact that we simply can't find them, or in some way, shape, or form, they have discriminatory practices that prohibit us from actually accessing those resources, right? And so at the end of the day, it's all policy, right? And the beauty about policy is that it can change, right? And when you think about what drives policy, it's people, okay? And so I encourage you all to begin to really dissect individuals and really figure out who is going to best advocate for your needs, okay? These programming that I'm trying to have implemented, do I think that I can have them implemented as a citizen sometime before I'm elected? Probably not, right? But at least we begin to have these conversations, right? And these conversations is what's necessary if we're going to begin to really move towards measurable solutions. A lot of people up here have visions. That's really nice, right? But at the end of the day, you need a results-driven individual, right? Someone that is going to acknowledge these issues, right? Work with you to move towards measurable solutions to really get things done for you and the rest of our community. That is what we need.
Thank you. Mr. Herr?
Thank you for, ma'am, thank you for sharing with your situations. I live at Geranium, and one of the houses next to me, when the mothers die and the kids can't take care of the house and they're living there, they have a trash in the house for 2 years. And they will be called the cops so many times, and the city don't enforce that. And so finally, after 2 years, they get rid of the family and they remodel the home and move somebody in there, and the house it's great. The house is great. So I think the city need to enforce that. Cool. You know, I mean, the city, for example, the cop, we call the cop coming, the cop just look in there and don't do anything. So whoever cannot even take care of the house, let the house to be remodeled and rent to or own to somebody else. So that's my question my answer that the city needs to enforce that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I only have time for one more question due to time. She raised her hand before everybody else. But this was to open up dialogue with each of the candidates whom you see here, and you guys got all their contact information, their flyers. So I'm gonna let her get to her question, and after the question is done, we're gonna do closing speeches. And I wanna thank Eastside Freedom Library and Clarence over here for letting but there'll be a little time afterwards if the candidates have time to speak with the constituents here. But I'm gonna get to this question.
Last year, I think it was the United Nations came out with a report that's saying that we have till 2030 to tackle climate change, or there will be irreparable harm. How in St. Paul and on the east side can we start addressing the issues of climate change and working against the temperature?
Climate change is a very real thing, first and foremost. I know that Danielle, as well as another individual, had pointed out the zero waste ordinance that we hope will go into place. Prior to my knowledge of this ordinance, we had already begun to work on that, right? But like affordable housing, which is a very broad thing that everyone likes to talk about, we figured that we would zero in on one particular issue within that, and that is doing away with the use of plastic bags citywide. Okay, that is what we want to do here on the east side, because that is what we have built a consensus around. Okay, if we feel that if we can muster the resources to do away with smoking in bars and restaurants, then certainly we can do away with the use of plastic bags in retail stores citywide. I think that's a very good step in the right direction. That's something that I feel like as a city council member, we will have governing authority over, assuming that we reimagine how we organize, right? Because I always tell people the way that we have to reimagine what's possible. We have to reimagine how we organize. The same way we organize around a particular issue right here in Ward 6, in order to be effective on the city council, we have to organize that in that very same manner in at least 3 other communities around the city, and have those individuals from those different neighborhoods lobby their city council members, because regardless of who's up here and who's elected, we're only one of 7 representatives, okay? And if elected, our job will be to govern the whole municipal body, okay? That is what we are actively working on right now. I promise you, we are going in the coming months release a full plan that shows how exactly we plan to do away with the use of plastic bags citywide. I know that there was a lady in here with the zero waste, I believe, but they sent me the ordinance in its entirety. I have not had the opportunity to review it, so I don't really know if indeed the use of, doing away with the use of plastic bags citywide is included in that. But if it's not included in that, that's certainly something that I would advocate to be included in that. The effect that it may have on our small businesses, I've already begun to think about that, right? And I feel that if the city is really going to advocate for these different things, that the city should bear the responsibility to help supplement that cost, right? It's just the same with the containers. If the city is going to go into these small businesses and say that you have to do away with plastic containers, right? And it may increase their cost per unit 15 cents. Well, I think that the city should help supplement that cost. Maybe not all of it, but some of it, right? They need to take a lead, okay? And I feel like that's the city's responsibility, because you can't, it's weird. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, y'all have to bear with me, because, you know, these are things that are very real, but you can't just go as a government into a small business and ask them to reshape how they do business because it benefits the community on a larger scale, right? we can go into these businesses, present them with these different alternatives, right? But also be in a position to provide them with some supplemental assistance, right? Because that is what's necessary, right? Because or else we'll be having a conversation of people closing their businesses thinking that it's gonna have this huge adverse effect on them, but in all reality, it really isn't, right? But again, education, there's a lot of people that can't even read these ordinances right here in our backyards. We have the Hmong community, the last emerging group of immigrants right here in, on the east side, Hmong, M-O-N. Right, not Hmong. I know a lot of people thought that I was saying Hmong the last time I brought this up, right? M-O-N. These individuals do not even have a language translated at no level of government, right? So even if we implement, but they own businesses, right? So even if these ordinances become into effect, who's out there translating for these individuals, right? These are the different things that we need to be.
I don't mean to cut you short.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, we talk about climate change. When I was at Park Rangers, I was patrolling the park and make sure that we educate these kids, whoever in the park, make sure that they pick up their trash, make sure that they put in the trash can. And I think the city need to clean our park and our lake and our environment like a green area, like in St. Paul, like Phelan Lake and stuff, those need to clean. So I think that the park needs to be clean, the lake needs to be clean, and those are the thing that will change the environment back to normal. If we don't poison the lake, we don't poison that park or the tree or something like that, we will get back those changes. But I think the city need to clean those, and that's our job. We need to educate our kids and our people to taking care of the park and the lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Nelsie? I dream of us living in a community where it is clean, where we are a zero waste community, and that we have long-term sustainable dreams about being a community where there is 100% renewable energy all throughout our entire city. And I know that we cannot get there without having a fighter at the table. People often think about climate justice as one of the issues that you can put on the back burner because with the status quo politicians that we often see, to them what is most important is how we can capitalize on our communities, make the most money, and also make decisions that are easy or popular. And I know that climate justice is never on the priority list for them. However, it is for me. It is for me because I believe that when we protect our planet, we are protecting our people. And one day, all of us will not be here, but there will still be people here. And the investments that we make in today's modern world is an investment for that future, and that's what I'm deeply committed to. And I know that we need to get things done at the city level here, from eliminating plastic bags to making sure we have sustainable to-go packages, from big ideas, from small ideas like that to big ones, like divesting from big bank infrastructures that are always capitalizing off of us every day. These are the big visions that we need to get toward, and I'm someone who is going to fight for us to get there.
I think, people have talked here about like personal practice and what we need to individually do. Another thing that contributes to the climate change is things like transportation, right? And the trips we make and how long we're in our cars. It's the biggest producer of greenhouse gases right now is from cars and buses, and so we have to look at, that's why we need to do things like create local economies so that we're walking and biking to local businesses. I know it's kind of hard on nights like tonight, yeah. But I think those are those everyday practices we have to think about. How do we again make it so that people don't have to local jobs so you aren't traveling so far. I think those are things that are going to be really helpful about personal practice. I also think we need to just, as we engage with people, we have to talk about preparedness. Because things are happening. The polar vortex won't be the first or last one. We will probably continue to have hot summers, But we know what it means for folks who are low income and for our seniors in the community. So we need to also think about how we prepare people for those situations that are going to be coming up, because it was unfortunately, and from Alexander's hometown, what we saw in Katrina is the lack of preparedness. We saw that worse. Sorry, where you had lived. Sorry,
Okay.
But when I think of that, I think of how the lack of preparedness. What that did to those communities there. And we need to know, especially here where we're 40% poverty levels, we're most vulnerable, is where we most need to do that work.
Thank you. Danielle?
Thank you for your question. I think that narrative is really important. And for one thing, like the zero waste, or how do we become more efficient? I think that if we align that narrative along with affordable housing and how that makes living more affordable, I think that is a way to really gear people in that direction. What we say and how we say it is very important. So I think just aligning our narrative, and then much to Terry's point also, I know that there's been a lot of money that's spent to make our streets more walkable, and I think that we need to continue to do that. I rely on public transportation. I don't have a car anymore, and we actually have a pretty good transit system. So it's just thinking about ways how we can conserve that way as well, biking more, and walking and utilizing public transportation. Another thing I think that we can think about is really promoting and investing in like solar energy and wind energy, which is also affordability talk, you know what I mean? How can we save money with our energy? Solar panels is a thing, you know what I mean? It's actually a really big thing. So I think that we should be having talks about things like that. And then just making sure that it's in alignment with how it will contribute to other issues that we see, like affordable housing.
Thank you.
Just to quickly double down on that, I think it's really important. You mentioned the solar energy. We can actually begin to use solar panels on blighted properties, right? Like, what does the city has to lose other than to invest in solar panels on blighted properties, which the city's already played with? We have a lot of blighted properties that can begin to work for the betterment of our environment.
Okay, well, thank you, candidates. I really appreciate you guys here. You guys have 2 minutes each to do an ending, and then you can go ahead and talk with all the constituents here. I really appreciate it. We'll have Tony go first. Thank you.
Okay, my conclusion is that I live on the east side for over 20 years, and I already worked for District Council 5. I already involved with a lot of projects like in the east side, like the Hmong Asian cutoff on the losing case. I involved with that, and also the Chinese Guardians, and also a lot of projects on the east side. So with my experience, I love to serve the community because I already served the community for 20 years, and plus my experience with the park rangers, my experience with working for St. Paul Public School for over 25 years, and I think I'm one of the experienced candidates here. So I hope you guys make it favorable to be my candidate, to be my delegate on March 10 at 2:30 at Hazel Park. You can register to be my delegate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bourne?
I was going to be last, actually. I felt like I've been occupying a lot of space.
I have a timer going, by the way, guys, so.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you for your deep investment in Ward 6 here. Whether you live here or you're an ally of the Ward 6 and want to see the neighborhood do better, I want to say thank you. And when I thought about 7 months ago, when I thought about running for city council, to me, I knew that that I wanted to do it, that I needed to, because when I think about what's happened here to Ward 6, we didn't just need bold progressive leadership just this year. We actually needed it about 20 years ago. And even beyond that, I tend to think about what type of community the East Side would be if we did have that leadership. And I'm a young person. I always say that to people, but I'm a young person with a lot of leadership and integrity to bring us forward into a future that is bold and progressive. 7 months ago when we launched, we did it, and we were brave about it, and we worked hard every single day. We are the campaign who is out there running a grassroots campaign. We've raised $50,000 to invest back into the community here in the East Side. I'm ready to really build a future with you that includes all of us, because we actually deserve to be shaping our future together. And so if you also care deeply about that, I would love to have your support. Come out to the DFL Precinct Caucus with us on March 10th. If you look at our flyer, we have the time, location there, and I would love to continue having a conversation with you about how we can build a stronger East Side together.
Thank you.
I usually don't prepare an ending speech. That's the first time that I've seen that. So I guess I just will end with saying thank you. I really appreciate you all coming out. I'm a community member who also participates in lots of community events. And I know that when things go on at the end of a long day, sometimes it can be tiring, but we really need community to show up. So I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your consideration. I'll also be seeking the DFL endorsement. So I'll see you at precinct caucuses, and I hope to earn your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Likewise, I think, can I ask real quick, just to do something real quick, just to close your eyes and imagine what our future here would look like with affordable housing, with a community, with local businesses, walkable businesses we can get to where our schools and our children and our seniors are doing well. I mean, that is going to be us here on the East Side. And I'm really excited to be in this run, to be putting myself up there, because it's time, and it's also the opportunity that we have to hit the ground running. I am someone who does get stuff done, and so, which is why some folks are saying, well, where have you been? I've been doing stuff and getting stuff done. And so, and I'd be really proud to be getting stuff done here for Ward 6, and continue to do this work, whatever form or function I'm in. So thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I'm really grateful for your time and your patience, and to think very carefully. We have wonderful opportunity this year because it's an open seat, but I really think I'm the best candidate for this position, and so based on my experience, and I would love to have your support also at the DFL Precinct Caucuses. I see some of y'all every year. It'll be great to see y'all again. Please, to new folks, to come and join us on Sunday, the 10th.
Yes. I am the only candidate that was raised right here in the city of St. Paul. I am the only candidate that was...
That's not true, Alex. So, yeah.
How long you say you lived here?
It's not true, but go on.
Okay. Per stated, I am the only candidate that was raised right here in the city of St. Paul. I am the only candidate that was educated right here in the city of St. Paul, K through 11 and a half, if I may add. My mom bought a house in Hastings the second semester of my junior year. I'm a results-driven individual, and people, if you look on the back of your thing, you'll see that precinct caucuses take place on Sunday. That is because of my advocacy. I am the individual that fought with the DFL to make sure that for the first time in the history of St. Paul, that precinct caucuses take place on a Sunday afternoon. I did that successfully because I know, having grown up here in St. Paul, that we have many working class families that shouldn't have to choose going to work to provide for their families versus participating in the so-called democratic process. Okay, I get that. I am the individual. Okay. Yeah. Just like you wrote here, actually. Perfect. But yeah, can I get some of my time back for the interruptions? I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. But also, I think it's very important to note that you've heard a lot of visions, but very few solutions and alternatives. And I've done my very best to try to provide you with some different solutions to the issues that are plagued right here in the city of St. Paul. I highly encourage you all. We're actually meeting over at Cajun Life immediately following after this forum where we can continue this discussion, because we need more discussions and less forums. And I have already created two spaces for you to come and share your vision for the city of St. Paul, as well as hear mine. Every Monday at 9 a.m., I host donuts and discussions down at Katie's Coffee. Every Wednesday, I host happy hour over at Tongue in Cheek from 5:30 to 7. Every Thursday, I host lunch at Caribou at 11:30 to 1 p.m. And every Sunday, I host Soul Food Sundays at Cajun Life. I highly encourage you all to take advantage of these different times that I have created spaces for you to come and have your voices heard.
Okay,
Just as I will do
you
it
had the
now,
extra time,
I will
Mr.
continue
Bourne.
to.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Eastside Freedom Library and everybody, and thank you. And we have a live streamer. You guys can definitely go on the Eastside Freedom page, share the live stream. I really appreciate everybody for being here. Make sure to talk to your candidates, and thank you for representing Ward 6, all of you.